And then this is the leadership side, the second side of the Rubik's Cube, which is who do you need to become to be able to predictably attract that, to be able to sustainably lead that, right? So the next iteration of your practice, the next iteration of your business, it's going to call for a next iteration of you.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business, so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us for this next episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Pete Camiolo. What's up, Dr. Pete?
What's up, Dr. Stephen? What's up, everyone? Great to be together today.
Man, we've got an awesome episode today. We're talking to the leader. We're talking to the CEO of this business, of this practice. You know, we've started this, we've framed this whole conversation around having a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. And we have helped them understand that, man, there's two things that have to happen to make this a reality. Number one, you got to take that job that you own and turn it into a business. And then secondly, the transformation of you from owner-operator to the CEO. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership.
Yeah, this is such an important subject, Dr. Stephen, and one that I absolutely cherish. I love studying leadership. I love understanding leadership. And I love that we are going to dive into this today. And this is such an important subject for us, all of us, to realize that each and every one of us is a leader. Each and every one of you is a leader. Each and every one of the people on your team is a leader. We're all leaders. And I think this is such an important, because we can use this term and we maybe not unpack it and understand it the way we need to. So today we're going to unpack it, help you understand. There's a question that is underneath all of this conversation today. The question is, who do I need to become? And this is a question you can ask your children. This is a question you can ask your spouse. It's a question you can ask every single member on your team. You can even ask this question to your patients. Who do you need to become, right? To be the best version of yourself and you fill in the blank. What are all the different roles that you have in your life right now? So for me as a husband, for me as a father, for me as a doctor, for me as a coach, for me as a business leader, right? So what are all the different hats, so to speak, the roles that you wear? This question, who do I need to become, really is the underlying question of everything we're about to talk about right now. And today on this episode is, who do I need to become? And what are the attributes of the person that I'm becoming? We talk about having that person in mind, who you are. What are the attributes of that person? Almost as the aspirational self, the next best version of you. What are those attributes, characteristics of that person, and then who you're being today, and what's the gap, right? The gap in who you are and who you're becoming, and living in that tension of that gap. As leaders, we embrace this. And I truly believe, Dr. Stephen, this is about becoming leaders worth following, because we're talking about the 6 sides of the Rubik's Cube, solving the puzzle of your business, creating success in your business, that remarkable business and remarkable life, having them both. How do you do that? Leadership, you becoming the great leader, and you equipping and surrounding yourself with leaders and empowering them to lead and lead well. And there becomes more and more and more layers of leadership as you become the best leader. The leader worth following is the one who invites other people to step into their role as leaders. Those people step into places of their certainty, step into places of their conviction, step into layers of their clarity around who they are and who they are becoming, and how they're making an impact through their life's work. This is an amazing unearthing process of restoring the genius in each and every person, bringing people into this place where each and every person is prospering, flourishing in this place of abundance. This is what we're doing as leaders. We're inviting people into this. And I think there's a distinction that I love to talk about, and we don't have to get into it too much in this episode today, but being more liberator than Lord. You know, I talked about this in one of our Monday Mindsets a few months back with the Remarkable Practice, how, there's a big difference between being a lord and a liberator. And what a liberator really does is they bring the best out of other people, right? Versus a lord, which is just weighing down on people, right? People are doing things out of obligation versus out of inspiration and, out of desire. So there's a big difference, Dr. Stephen. I think this goes back to you, first and foremost, yourself as a leader.
Yeah, so we're having this incredibly important conversation in the context of solving the 6 sides of the Rubik's Cube. So, in our last episode, we talked about the first side of the Rubik's Cube, which is the vision story, right? Like, what does success look like to you? And then this is the leadership side, the second side of the Rubik's Cube, which is who do you need to become to be able to predictably attract that, to be able to sustainably lead that, right? So the next iteration of your practice, the next iteration of your business, it's going to call for a next iteration of you, right, as a leader. So if your vision story is the success story, the cool thing is you get to be the hero in the success story, right? And here's the catch. It's not you today, right? It's the next best iteration of you. It's the future next best iteration of you as a leader. That's going to be the hero of the success story. So as much as you have to have clarity around exactly what success looks like for you, for your life, for your business in the future, like what are we trying to create? What are we trying to move towards? You've got to be able to tell that story in such a compelling way that people want to join you and help you because they buy into that vision story and they share your core values, or they're going to be repelled by that vision story because they don't share your core values. Both of those are great. Don't be afraid to be polarizing. I suggest you should be terrified of not being polarizing, because I don't want anybody on your team who doesn't share your core values and is not inspired to create that vision story of success. Because even if you get all of this done right, this is hard as hell, right? Because it's like everybody has to be in the boat or in hand rowing in the exact same direction. So critically important that you have clarity around that.
Yeah, so this goes back to that core values conversation. So glad you brought this up, because I remember we said how your core values determine who you are when you show up to work. Your business core values determine who gets to work with you, right? So this is really important, Dr. Steve, when you talk going back to the core values and the vision story, because taking ownership is a leadership responsibility, right? It's taking that ownership of your core values. How you show up also then determines who gets to work with you, right? Because it's the business core values that attract the people in your world. That includes your team, and it also includes customers, partners in your community, all the people that ultimately make up your organization as an entity, as an enterprise. Those are all coming back to, we could tie that thread. How did all these people? Back to those core values.
Absolutely right.
So this is leadership, is seeing that and taking ownership over it. And it translates down into the people, the systems, the trainings, the energy, right? This all goes back to that moment.
Absolutely. And so this has to be authentic. It has to be genuine. It has to be an inside out unearthing process. So to recap for the CEO, the vision story is what success looks like to you. And it is the expression or manifestation of your core values for your business. What is most important to you, right? So if the vision story is a success story and you get to be the hero of that success story, the next best iteration of you as a leader, you have to have that same level of clarity for yourself. Like, who am I trying to become? What is that next best iteration of me? What attributes do I need to develop? And I need to be very deliberate about developing them. Like developing muscles, you need to know what specific exercises, what type of training do I need to do to develop that strength, that stamina, that speed, that reflex, that coordination, etc. You need to know that future iteration of yourself and what your business, your vision story is going to call for. What it's going to require of you. Where are you going? Who do you need to become? What levels of, let's say, certainty, because your attraction is a reflection of your certainty. What levels of certainty do you need to develop? Or conviction, which is your conversions will be a reflection of your conviction. So what levels of conviction, what depth of conviction are we going to need to arrive at? And exactly what do we need to be convicted around? And then there's clarity. Clarity is king. Your retention will be a reflection of your clarity. What levels, what's the next level of clarity do you need to achieve as a leader so that you can speak it into your team, so your team can speak it into your people can speak it into the community? What does success look like? Exactly how do you consume this thing called chiropractic? Exactly what does it mean to be an ideal patient? What's my process? What's my procedure? What's my product, etc.? Clarity is king, and clarity is the greatest accelerant, especially when it comes to you becoming that next level leader.
Yeah, I mean, this is so key. We're talking about attributes right now of leadership, and you identified 3 key attributes of every great leader, and the first one being having certainty. And so let's just land here for a minute. As you're listening to this, as a leader of an organization, if you're listening to this podcast, again, like I said at the beginning, you are a leader, and you may be the leader of your organization listening to this. And so where are you on the spectrum of certainty when it comes to your business? And there are many elements of your business. We talk about attraction, conversion, retention, team building. Well, there's a certainty that goes into all of those areas, into it, creating a remarkable attraction in your business. We know that in the area of attraction, there are 3 primary areas where people are learning about and discovering your business and getting there. There's the internal path, there's the external path, and there's the digital path. And so your certainty is going to be expressed through those streams and perceived by the other side. And so your clarity, your certainty, your conviction, but your certainty is what's going to be communicated through that. And that's what's going to have the greatest impact on what you're attracting in and who you're attracting in to your business. A lot of people don't have a marketing issue. They have a certainty issue, right? That's going to solve the problem. And so I would go back to that and ask you, how is your certainty? And then how are you building your certainty? How do you grow certainty, Dr. Stephen? If I'm a chiropractor, I've got a practice, and I'm like, man, I don't know. My certainty is wavering right now. I used to have certainty, or now I don't, right? I never really had certainty, I feel. I've always struggled with this area. What do you say to that, Doc?
So I love this question. So let's double click on it, because I've had the opportunity, as you have as well, Dr. Pete, to be coaching chiropractors all over the world. Like, I've worked with thousands of chiropractors. I've been inside of 1,000 practices, right? And I've looked around and I've tried to find that X factor and say, what is that thing that creates such certainty? And what I learned is there's actually not one thing, right? And there are these 3 things of certainty, conviction, and clarity, right? And in fact, when you double click on something like certainty, you'll find, in my experience, certainty actually lives in one of 4, what I call the pillars. Like, these are the sources of certainty. Like, there are different styles, there are different personality types, and people draw their certainty from different wells, right? So in my experience, it falls into one of 4 categories, right? And that's philosophical certainty, there's clinical certainty, there's communications certainty, and there's the certainty that comes from business acumen, right? So let's unpack those a bit here. Maybe each one of these will be a future episode, but the first one on philosophical certainty, this is such a superpower in our profession of chiropractic that when we said certainty, I bet most of you assumed we meant philosophical certainty, right? So we know this is true because for most of the big practices, quote unquote, successful practices that their strongest suit is most likely their philosophical certainty. We know this to be true because chances are it's a complete cat circus in every other part of their practice, right? But their certainty is so strong, right? So there's first philosophical certainty. Now, the second piece is clinical certainty. Maybe your certainty comes from your skill sets in the clinical environment. You love working with patients in the case management, the analysis of your films. You love your technique, your adjusting prowess, right? You love helping people get the results they're looking for. These are my technique gurus. These are the people that love the difficult cases, can't wait to get their hands in and hands on people, right? They just ooze clinical certainty. And I bet if you're anything like me, that at this point in your life, you're probably a bit of a chiropractic snob, right? Like I don't let anybody adjust me. Dr. Pete, I love having Dr. Pete adjust me, but I'm really selective as to who I let adjust me. But you know what? If the shit hits the fan with myself, my health, or anybody else in my family, there's probably one person in your life that you'd get on a jet, you'd get on an airplane, you'd fly your family to go see. And that's probably true for you as well, right? So I'll guarantee you that person just reeks of clinical certainty, right? Then the third one is communications, right? There's people that they draw their certainty from the fact that I know I can tell the story. I know that I can tell the story in such a compelling way. I can drive people to take action. I can drive people to engage. I can actually move a room of people with my story, right? My communication skills is my superpower. And then the fourth, of course, is business acumen. Business acumen meaning that there are those of us who are super confident that we can build a business from vapor. We love to just find the location, design the build out, do the floor plan, attract a team of people, put systems, processes, procedures, scripting together, do the marketing plan, right? And attract people, right? So our certainty is in the fact that we know how to start and run a business successfully. So we've got philosophical, we've got clinical, we've got communications, and we've got business acumen. My question to you is, what is your chief source of certainty? And I know some of you are like, oh, I have it in all categories, or, but I bet there's that one that you're like, oh yeah, that's me. So Dr. Pete, when I say that, on my side, it's clinical. That's where my certainty early on and all the way through has always been, I'm the clinical side. Where do you find yourself? Where do you place yourself on the four pillars?
Philosophical is where I landed right in school. It was actually pre-Kairos school, coming from another medical background degree. It was the understanding of the innate intelligence and universal intelligence and the principles of chiropractic, above, down, inside out, that really drew me into becoming a chiropractor. It resonated with my spirit, just my background, just spending a lot of time in ministry world. It made a lot of sense to me. It resonated to me. I connected God to like health. And I was like, wow, there's such a connection. And it just made sense to me, all the details. And so, which is interesting because Dr. Stephen, I ended up going to a less philosophical university, chiropractic college, one of the more medical ones. But I thought that was good because I innately knew I needed to build up my clinical prowess. I needed to develop my clinical skills and really understand the science and the biology and physiology of health and disease and subluxation, all of that. And then combined with my philosophical strengths, that enabled me to become a great clinician. And then in clinical practice is where I developed my communication skills. Because up to that point, I didn't have skills in the communication arena. And then during that, I built a business, and that's how I developed business acumen. So it's like one led to the other, which I'm sure for you, it was, you started with this one, then you bolted on this and this and this. Next thing you know, you got them all. Yeah. And that's what ends up happening to us. Now we can continue to grow in all those areas. Once you've got them, I would never say you got them mastered, but there's an ownership over all of them, and you realize where the gaps are. Now we get help. And this is where I actually feel like, where we get support with coaching and we get support with mentoring and in other areas in running our business, because we do need to have mastery in all these areas, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this is like this is a perfect place to just put out in front of everybody the opportunity to understand what we do with the Remarkable CEO program, right? So in our coaching, you bring up developing these skill sets. It's such a huge part of going from being the owner operator to being the CEO and becoming the CEO. These four attributes are just so critical. And this is such a focal point for our Remarkable CEO program. So if you're interested in diving deeper on this and working with us directly to develop these attributes, as well as the other 6 sides of the Rubik's Cube, this is the place to do it. There's a link down below that you can explore and find out exactly what it takes to work with us directly. Pete, this we're talking about right now is just this one attribute, right, of certainty. And like you said, there are 4 pillars, and each of the 4, you need to have all 4 of these things to be successful. I like to say that you may have one superpower, the one that is like, yeah, that's my thing. That's my one. That's the thing that I really lean on the most. This isn't like Strengths Finders where you just get to choose, oh yeah, that's my thing, and I'm going to go with that. Because ultimately, when it comes to being the CEO, you got to recognize in your business, you're going to need to have all 4 of those. You're going to need to have the philosophical piece in place. You're going to have the communications part in place. Of course, the clinical piece needs to be in place and the business acumen. And here's what I know. Your success will be limited by your weakest pillar. So you could enjoy incredible success, and still that incredible success is capped by your weakest pillar. So this self-awareness to know, like, where am I struggling? Like, man, you know what? I need to be working on my philosophical strength, my philosophical certainty. Maybe it's my clinical piece. It's been a while since I've tuned up that clinical piece and continue to learn and continue. Or maybe it's my communications. I'm a great doctor. I got a strong philosophy, but I struggle. I can't order a sandwich. My communication skills are sideways, and that's really capping. Or maybe it's business acumen. Man, I'm a brilliant chiropractor. I'm on purpose. I give, love, and serve. My philosophy is totally strong. I'm a great communicator, but I'm hopeless when it comes to running a business on my own. And it's just tragic when you see so many gifted, great chiros out there that do great work, get great results, giving, loving, serving people, and he or she is just struggling in our space and not reaching their potential because they don't know how to run a business, right? And the business acumen pillar is the weak one. Your success will be limited by your weakest pillar, which is why this is a fitness issue, guys. You need to be looking at this, like Dr. Pete just said, is you don't just achieve it and then you sit on your laurels. You look at these like fitness. Each of these 4 pillars should be thought of as muscles that work together in coordination in very complex motor patterns, right? So where are we susceptible to injury? Where we have a weakened muscle that's involved in a functional movement, right? So we have to look at these as muscle groups. These 4 pillars of certainty work together to create that strong contraction, that coordination, and that great performance, right? So look at yourself and say, which of these 4 pillars am I strongest at? And where do I have the greatest point of exposure? And then ask yourself a question, where am I investing in all 4 of these pillars and working these muscles out specifically and deliberately and regularly? And you got to recognize that, I asked you which one is your superpower, which is your biggest point of exposure, because what you want to do is you want to find those people that reek of that certainty in those respective categories so you can rub up against them, because this stuff is highly contagious, right? So you want to spend your time with people who have great certainty in each of those 4 pillars. And you know what? Just like certainty is contagious, so is fear and doubt. So, I like to say that some friends need to be fired, right? Or my wife is much nicer. She says some people need to be loved from afar, right? So, just surround yourself with a tribe of people who are committed to increasing their sources of certainty and identify who in my life, who's going to be at my virtual board of trustees, as my good friend Guy Riekman likes to say, who sits at the head of the table when it comes to philosophical certainty, who sits at my table who's got clinical certainty, who sits at my table who's my communications representative, who's on my board of trustees for business acumen. Make sure that those seats are filled and you're spending time rubbing up with those people, catching some of that certainty.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an important thing that you talked about and related to fitness, Dr. Stephen, because I think that for many of us who are listening, and as we're hearing this, probably many of us are health nuts kind of thing, and we're into fitness, or we're into physical fitness. So what we're talking about is fitness for your business. We're talking about fitness as creating success in your business. As you have your vision, story, you have your core values, those are clearly defined. As a leader, it's now your role and responsibility to get fit and then stay fit. And we always would say this to our patients. It's like, once you get well, you don't arrive at health. Health is a journey. It's not a destination. And so we have to get to this understanding in our own selves. It's like, well, I had coaching in the past, or I used to read the green books, or whatever it is. Those things you can leverage those things for a while, but eventually it comes back around. And what I personally believe in is being able to have consistent, just building that into my lifestyle, a lifestyle of fitness. I'd much prefer it being a part of a lifestyle rather than I do weekends, right? So it's that weekend warrior mindset when it comes to maybe business acumen. You're like, well, every once in a while I'm going to go and try to go to a business seminar, plug in this, or I'll listen to this podcast only, or I will, maybe read a book a quarter or something. Those are really good things to do, but I feel like there's another level of business acumen that we can all gain. Communication skills, same thing. Like, how can you develop and grow in your skills of communication? One of the greatest ways to grow in communication skills is actually communicating, actually using that skill of communication. I think too many of us, we hide in our practices. We don't do it enough, getting out, getting our message out, getting our voice out there. I know, Dr. Stephen, that you didn't have that issue in your practice. I know that was never my issue either, actually to a fault almost. But at the end of the day, just honing in your skills on communication. That's where getting in environments like training with other colleagues of yours does a great job of helping you hone your communication skills and your team being able to do that. Things like clinical expertise. I know for you, Dr. Stephen, and for me, I have to get my continuing education credits every year. Some people just get their continuing education credits, check the box. Other people are like, I'm getting to the best technique seminar on X, Y, or Z every year because I want to continue to be the best extremity adjuster or the best adjuster of this, or understanding of when this panel comes in, I want to be able to know exactly how to deal with that blood work or whatever. That is clinical excellence. You're continuing to pursue it. And then obviously philosophical, you need to get surrounded with people that are strong in these areas. Dr. Stephen, this has been such a powerful discussion. We only hit one of the 3 attributes.
Clearly, we need a series, Dr. Pete.
Certainty.
Turn into part 2 and 3.
Conviction and clarity. Wow, so much more to unpack. But we're going to go ahead and press pause here, Dr. Stephen. Because again, this is leadership is continuing the conversation. That's the beautiful thing about leadership. The way this podcast has even unfolded is the definition of leadership. More to come, lots more to continue. That's what leaders doing. They continue going after it, continue showing up.
Awesome. All right. So guys, clearly this needs to be a series. We talked about the 3 attributes specifically for attraction, conversion, retention. That's certainty, conviction, and clarity. Tune in on our next episode. We'll start to unpack conviction. Conviction about what? Just don't miss this next conversation, and make sure that you are telling others, because we need great chiropractors. Guys, at the end of the day, what the world needs right now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs right now is more successful chiropractors. So thank you in advance for helping us serve our mission.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.